Check it out. I know it's been a while, but got myself a brand new motor. Got the HobbyWing V10 G4R, itty bitty wording right there. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know why it makes it so small. I make that thing pop so everybody knows this is the new version. But yeah, 17.5T. They just came out this a couple months ago. It's a little different from the one that they came out with less than a year ago. It's kind of odd that a brand would come out with a new design motor all within 12 months of each other. But let's say we open up this box and take a look to see what's inside. Alright, here I have it here I have it open. Case is off. Nothing really interesting written on this. It's just the actually run V10 17.5T black G4R Rotor. These are Rotor certified, Rotor legal motors, so you can race them at any track. This is different. It has the resistance marked right here on the box for this motor. Looks like it's averaging about 35.7.8, somewhere around there is what the average between the three, which is it's pretty normal. That's pretty much on par with all the other motors. This has a looks like it has a bigger stator on there. I'll have to take a look, and it's been a while since I saw the last version. Feels like it has a strong rotor in here. We'll go ahead and take that apart in a little bit and measure it. The machining on it looks a lot cleaner than the last one. Now, I don't know if you remember the last motor that I tested. This one here, the machining on it looks cleaner. The last motor, I'll be honest with you, the last motor when I tested it, I wasn't very impressed with it. I know a lot of people out there love the motor. They say it's an excellent motor, it's a great motor, you know, it's a good motor. But I wouldn't say it was excellent. It did, when I opened it up inside, looking inside, it did look a little sloppy. The windings and stuff like that look sloppy. I can't tell from these holes how it looks just yet, but from what I can see so far, it looks cleaner than the last motor. But yeah, the performance from the last motor, I wasn't very impressed. So maybe that's why they came out the new one, because maybe their motor didn't hold up to their reputation. HobbyWing is known for usually having a very, very good motor. But anyhow, yeah, you have your sensor port there, your timing adjustments right here on the side. They look pretty, see the numbers pretty good, but it's really, really hard to see the needle, not needle, or the line that points to the motor. What we got in here? Looks like we have another sensor port. Looks like they took a chapter out of the Surpass motor. I know Surpass was the first one to come out with the dual ports, but Surpass still has it. But yeah, this is seems pretty good. We'll say we go ahead and take it apart, take some measurements, do some weighing, and see exactly what this motor can do. Alright, let's go learn something. Okay, so I have it all apart here, as you see, sitting on my WMH racing motor stand, or service stand. Now, the way this thing comes apart, it's a typical 3 screws, holds a kind of pancakes everything in there. These are steel. They're not titanium or anything like that. Well, let me first go through the stator with you. this here, if you remember the last one, the G4, it was kind of sloppy inside. I wasn't very impressed with it. The wiring inside was loose. Didn't look very clean, just looked like it was quickly slapped together. This one here looks a lot better. I'm a lot more impressed with it. Of course, they have more epoxy glue in there than I've ever seen. I have to weigh. I can't wait to weigh this thing to see how much weight it is, because it's probably going to be a bit heavier than the other motors. But everything in there is pretty clean. The wires are tight. The windings are tight. They look clean, very clean. The bars here are pretty thick, pretty sturdy, no flexing. Again, you can see all the epoxy glue and stuff like that they use. So the stator also, it's a fat stator. As you can see, it's flush with the can. It's not like the other motors where they kind of inset a little bit like this one here. This right here is a slot machine. You can see how the stator is not as thick as the can is. What that does, that is going to give in theory, it gives the motor more torque. So next we'll go with the end bells. So if you notice these end bells, the bearing on this end is bigger than the bearing on the back end. Which is kind of good. Not kind of good, it's pretty good. It just means that this is the side right here that takes majority of the weight, right? Because you have the bearing, or not the bearing, but you have the shaft coming out this side with the pinion gear on it. The pinion gear is pushed against the spur gear, and this right here is what's getting all the weight on it. So a bigger bearing helps it to be smoother, and these bearings feel really, really smooth. Again, you see the hole in the diameter. That one right there is bigger than the back one. So the changing these bearings out, this one right here would be pretty easy. It just pops out. This one here is going to be kind of hard because it looks like you have to take off the sensor board in order to get that bearing out. So, as you've seen in my other videos, changing out the bearings to ceramic bearings, it didn't do anything. It didn't change anything. This right here is kind of so it's different. This right here, they call this a nylon graphite mixed gasket. We call this a shim. That's all it is. It's just a nylon mixed with graphite. It's just a shim, and there's only one. There's none on the back end. Because I didn't see one on there, but there's nothing there. This here is the rotor. The rotor here is the thing I mentioned earlier. It's the 07 12.5 25.2 HUSB. Now the difference is between the numbers on this one and the upgraded version. This is the HUSB. The other version, the upgraded version of this, is the JUSB. So the J has more torque than this one. So this right here is not going to be as strong as J. I don't know what the Gauss reading is on the other one, but the upgraded one. But anyhow, that's an upgrade. I think they're $40 for new rotor. The biggest difference on this motor here, on this rotor, over the other rotors in the past, you see here, these are little fins on the rotor. So when this thing spins, it starts to blow air, starts to cool off the inside of the motor a little bit better. Some people will say it's a benefit, some people will say it's not a benefit. The benefit that will come with it is it keeps the inside the motor cool, but if you already have a fan motor on the outside blowing air in, there's no reason to have this. What they say is the bad thing about this type of deal here is because there's fins on it, it's going to cause more rotating mass because it's blowing air, right? It's going to have resistance, so it's going to lower the speed of the motor. How much? I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't think it's going to be enough to really knock it, but some people want that split second difference in speed. So that's rotor. We'll get to that here in a bit to test it, but yeah, that's the interiors of it. Again, I think that this is a lot. The stator, the rotor looks better too than the original G4 that came out almost a year ago. So let's go ahead and put this on the WMH Racing Rotor Master, and let's see just how powerful this rotor here is. Here we have it on the Rotor Master. Let's take a look and see what type of a reading we get here. Line it up. Okay, we'll do the north side first. See what we get. Looks like we're about 1773. Bad part is, as soon as I let go, it turns on me. So about 1780, 1781. That's pretty high. 1781 on the north side. Now let's try the south side. See what we get out of that. I'll tell you what, it's a lot higher than their last motor, our last rotor. The same rotor on the G4 last time read a 1700 and 1742. Let's see what this reads. 1740, 50. Looks like we're about 1749, 1750. Looks about 1750. Was the highest I got on that one. So, okay, let's go ahead and weigh this and measure it and all the other good stuff and get a real good reading on this. I finished up all the measuring of the stator and the rotor. I put it back together. I shimmed it. Now there's like minimal play. I shimmed it using a Teflon shim because they used a non-metal one. Just to keep it fair, I used another non-metal shim in there. Although, if you guys seen in my other videos, metal shimming, Teflon shimming, stuff like that, it didn't make a difference. But just to give it the benefit of the doubt, I went ahead and did that. So let's go ahead and run it on the tunalizer. Let's tune this bad boy and see what this thing can do. Okay, as you can see here, it looks like the factory setting is about 42, maybe 43. Let's go ahead and see how accurate the end bell reading is. That's from the factory. So, let's take a look. Run test. That motor is extremely quiet. Let's see, approximately 4 amps, 43.5. That's pretty accurate. That's pretty close to what it's set on there. And there you have the inbuilt deviation, rotor symmetry, and Hall signal deviation. That is really, really good numbers right there. At the end, I'll show you how the new, how these numbers compare to the old G4, the new G4R versus the old G4. But all right, let's go ahead and do the RPMs. Okay. $23,940. That there is okay. Let's adjust the timing and see what we can get. Let's see what our sweet spot is on this motor. I adjust about 45 degrees. I'm going to go up 5 degrees after that, just to see where we get on this thing. So. Okay, 46.9 timing and 4.64 on the amperage, and everything here still stayed pretty good. It's getting a little warm, but okay, let's go ahead and do the RPM check on this. $24,300. All right, let's go ahead and adjust the timing a little bit more and see what else we can get out of it. I just adjusted about 50 degrees. See what we got. Pretty close. It's only 0.3 off. 5.35 amps. And let's see what the other numbers look like. Those look good. Alright, let's adjust it some more, or let's check the RPMs. Okay, now for the RPM. $25,000 RPMs. That's pretty fast. Just going to punch that in here, my numbers. Okay, let's since I'm already so close, I'm already at 5.3 amp draw. I'm just going to bump it up just a couple degrees at a time, and see if we can, because I'm pretty sure we're getting close to that fine-tuned spot. This spot right here might actually be at 50 degrees, but on high torque rotors and stuff like that, around 50 degrees is pretty much common. But let's go ahead and check it out, see what we got. So I just bumped it up about 2 degrees. Let's take a look and see what we did. Yeah, so we jumped up to 6.5, which is approximately 1.2 amps higher just by going up not even Not even 2 degrees really. It went from, well, it's about 2 degrees. It went from 49.7 to 51.9. So it went about 2 degrees, and it jumped over an amp. So we went out of this sweet spot for this motor. See if we can back it down, but let's check to see what the performance is on this. All the numbers here look good. Let's check out that RPMs at that height. 25,400. 25,400. Alright, let's back it down a degree. Let's see if we can get this thing close to 6 amps, just under 6 amps. Okay, I shot it down about 1 degree. Let's see what we got here. So it went down 1 degree and it went down 1 amp. So that means that, yeah, anything higher, I'm just getting the motor's out of its comfort zone. Those numbers look good too. 50.3, so yeah, about 50 degrees is this motor's sweet spot. Alright, let's check the RPMs of this and move on to the next testing. 24,500. Oh, I'm sorry, it should be 25,000. Yeah, it did sound kind of weird when I said it out loud. 25,000 RPMs. Let's go ahead and run this thing on my next test, which will be the Loadmaster. Okay, I have this all tied in now with the same motor I use in all my tests for the Loadmaster. Surpass V6 17.5 lightweight stock motor. I have it hooked up to the 1 ohm resistors. So everything is in, fastened down. Let's go ahead and fire it up and see what it does. Now if you notice on that last run, it had a little bit of a hesitation almost. Let's go ahead and check the amperage and punch in the numbers and see how everything compares to the other version. Let's run the RPMs. about 21,600. All right, let's put all the numbers in and see how this thing compares to the other motors. Let's run the RPMs. About 21,600. All right, let's put all the numbers in and see how this thing compares to the other motors. Okay, so here's a spreadsheet, and I put the numbers on the spreadsheet to compare the G4R to the other motors I've tested recently. Now, first off, I have to correct myself on the release dates of the motors. The G4 was actually released in late spring, early summer of 2022, and the G4R was released in March of 2024. So there's a 2-year difference on those. Also, I have a disclaimer that if you guys follow me, I always repeat. There are tens of thousands of racers out there. And with tens of thousands of racers, as you all know, there's going to be tens of thousands of different opinions on just about everything, including the numbers that I come up with here. So my calculation of these numbers on what they mean on how the motor is going to perform, that's my personal opinion. I'm just using the numbers here. I have driven these other motors and compared them on the tracks and stuff like that, so I kind of know how they all relate to and number wise. But again, it's just my opinion. If you have a different opinion on what these numbers mean, by all means throw it down in the comment section. We'd all love to hear it. We'd like to hear the knowledge. Share your knowledge with us. So all right, well, let's get into this. So let's start off with the motor weight. The G4R is 5.6 ounces. That's 0.4 ounces bigger than the G4. And when you have these motors side by side, well, you'll see they're roughly about the same size. But the G4R is about 0.4 ounces heavier. I believe that is that attributes to the amount of epoxy glue that's inside this motor. If you remember, when I had it open, there's a lot of glue in there. So half ounce, if that's weight's an issue, that's something you might want to take in consideration. The rotors next. Now the rotors are the same. They're the same part number. They do have an upgraded rotor. I heard it has more torque. I don't know. I never really tested them or read much about them. But this one here is the HUSP. The upgraded one is a JUSP. So it'll have the same numbers, just the last the letters at the end will be different. It'll be a J versus an H. The Gauss readings. The G4R, the average Gauss reading on that was 1765. That is the highest Gauss reading I've had out of all the motors I've tested. The one before this, the one that I had the most before this, is the Surpass V6 stock spec. The heavyweight, they call it. That one had a 1763, so it's 2 Gauss off. So that's very interesting. Same, the HobbyWing's here, the G4, G4R, they both have the same rotor, but the Gauss is extremely different. Stator length, 1955. See, we have the stator IR, 3575. That's pretty right there with everything else pretty much. Stator diameter, 3575, which is just about the same size as all the other big fat stators out there. Then you have the stator diameter. Oh, I went through that one, not stator diameter. You have the rotor weight. The rotor weight, 0.9 ounces. And then, of course, then you have the date. So, let's get to the numbers here. Let's get to the meat of the testing here, the part that everybody's waiting for. So, from the factory timing on this is 43.5 on the G4R. It's the same timing setting on the G4 from the factory. Now, look at the current draw. The current draw on the G4R is 3.98 amps, where the G4 was 3.63, so it's about 0.3 difference amperage-wise. But look at the RPM difference. The G4 had 22,950. G4R is 23,940, so it's pretty much 1,000 RPMs faster. The G4R is. It's spinning just barely more current on it. So let's go down to where the tuning part, where it was tuned to the what we call the sweet spot before the current starts jumping sky high. They're both set. Let's see. They're both set within 1 degree of each other. The G4 is 50.5. The G4R is 49.7. Look at the current draw. 5.36 versus 5.35. So it's almost the same current draw, but there's almost 1,000 RPM difference between the two. You guys see that 2460 versus 25,000, and it's about a 1 degree difference in timing. If you also look, was one thing that I thought was pretty interesting. The when I tuned it to 50.3, 1 degree up from 49.7, well, almost 1 degree. You had a little bit higher current draw, a little bit higher KV, but the RPMs were the same. Now, if you go back and look at my tests, you'll see they are the same. The RPMs were the same. It's kind of weird. So let's get to the big test, because all these other freewheeling tests, they can mean anything. What you really want to know is you want to know how they perform under a load. The G4R under load is 21,600 RPMs. That's about 700 RPMs more than the G4. And if you look at the amp draw, it's about a 1.1 amp difference in amp draw too. Which would tell me that the G4R has a bit more torque, because if you look at the RPMs and stuff like that, it goes up the amperage, and it's still spinning that. Now, the reason why I say that, some of you might be saying, well, they started off at 1,000 apart, and now they're less apart under load. Well, the load motor, how the load motor works. So you have the drive motor, which would be the HobbyWing motor, will turn the load motor, which my load motor is the Surpass V6 lightweight. The faster you turn that load motor, the more of a load it has on the drive motor. So the harder the drive motor has to work. So when it's spinning at 1,000 RPMs more, that means it has quite a bit more of a load on that motor. So you're going to see a jump in amperage. And that's what you're seeing here. So it's still showing that on the top end, the G4R has more torque than the G4. Now, The other numbers back in here, they all look the same. The end bell deviation, the rotor symmetry, the Hall signal deviation, all that stuff is pretty much on par. If you look for the comments here, you'll see where I actually added the numbers up. Added, multiply, divide, however you want to call it. The G4 had an amp draw of 6.7, a difference of 6.12 amps different. That's how high the amps jumped up. This right here is 6.96. Again, that's with a higher load. I would say it's a much higher load, and it only went up about 80.8 amps difference between the two. But here's another thing that shows it. Look at the kV drop. 12% kV, 11% kV. That's a big kV drop, difference between the two. So again, that goes to show that the G4R is a torqueier motor and also faster than the G4. But now you ask, well, how does it compare to the new motors out there? Well, if we compare this to another motor, like the, let's find something that has the same RPMs. You have the Elite right here. The Elite is 21,600. The G4, that's what the, let me move this over a little bit. That's where it's timed 21,600. And the G4 is at 25,000, so we got to find something that's equivalent. That would be the Trinity Slot Machine Spec Edition. That's just the regular off-the-shelf Trinity Slot Machine motor. Now, I know the slot machine, you guys are out there screaming, that one's banned. Yes, it is banned. It's no longer Rotor legal. But y'all know how that one performed. But this is going to give you an idea. On our load test, it was 21,700. The G4 down here, 21,600. That's pretty stinking close. Amp draw, 12.5, 12.13. This one right here was 1 RPM faster, or 100 RPMs faster, and also drew less current. Look over here at the numbers. The kV drop is 8.5% versus the G4's 11%. And then the amp draw difference is 698 and 659. That means that the Trinity has more torque. It's not working as hard as the G4R to maintain that RPM range right there. So that just goes to tell you how they compare and how you can compare with the Loadmaster. So at the G4R, I think it's still a very competitive motor. It's probably good for, I would say, on-road racing or tracks that aren't not really a lot of high traction tracks like carpet. Probably clay, be good for clay, I would say. But let me go ahead and show you the rest of the numbers here real quick, so you guys take a quick look. If you want to compare them, there's the 2 Surpass motors. You can hit pause if you want to sit there and read longer. And then I'll go down to the Tekins down here. Now, one thing I wanted to mention also with the G4R, why I don't think it's the best for high traction tracks. If you remember when I was doing the last test on the tunalizer, when I was on the load, the tunalizer tests in different speeds. On the low speed, the G4R hesitated. That's why I have this this little note right here for it. It had a slight hesitation when it spun. That tells me that at low RPMs at low power, that motor is not, it's not at its best. It doesn't have a lot of low end torque. It has a lot of top end torque. So with me, that's things designed, it's just designed to go fast. The motor's designed to go fast. And kind of maintain torque on the high end. So it might be a really good 1/12 scale motor or on-road touring motor or something like that. But yeah. So with all these numbers pointed out and shown, let's go ahead and I will give you my final thoughts. My final thoughts are, again, this is just my personal opinion. There's a million racers out there, and with all those million racers, every racer is going to have their own opinion on what the numbers mean and so on. So this is my personal opinion. This motor right here, the HobbyWing G4R, I believe that this one is a substantial upgrade. The torque on this thing, I believe, is more than the original or on par, but the RPM on this thing is definitely a lot more RPMs on this. Under the load, it stayed pretty cool. Probably due to the fact that it has that fan inside that spins and helps circulate the air through it. The build quality on this one's a lot better than the predecessor. The windings are tighter. The end bell is it's sturdier, and everything's just, it just seems like a lot better motor. Adjusted timing on this thing is so easy. It's just these two screws right here, and you just loosen them up, and it moves real smooth, even the more expensive motors out there, you loosen them up, you turn a little bit, and you gotta loosen up a little bit more to get it to turn more, and just they don't turn as smooth. This right here, really smooth. I like this motor. I'd probably put it one of my top motors. I'd definitely put in like the top, probably 4 or 5 in there. I'll put up against any other motor that I've tested so far. A lot of it depends on the track that you're on, the type of racing that you're doing. Is it going to be high traction, low traction, on-road, off-road, whatever. I was surprised at the rotor on this thing, how powerful the rotor was, or rotor is, as well as the thick stator on this thing. I thought this right here would have more torque than it did, but as you saw the numbers and you saw the testing on the last little kick, the low power spin, it had a little bit of a bog on it, and the amount of amperage increase as well as the kV decrease and so on tells me that this isn't a high torque motor, but again, it still laid down some pretty good numbers. But that's my thought on this motor. Very good motor. If you got it, I think you'd be happy with it. But yeah, if you guys have a different opinion on the numbers, what they mean, or what your thoughts on motor, by all means, put them over there inside the comments section. Until then, if you like this video and you learned something and you want to see more of them, just go ahead and click on the like the video and subscribe to my channel. If you didn't like the video, subscribe anyway, just so you can make fun of all the other videos. Alright everybody, take care.